Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Trust Monday went well. Let me start with some macro thoughts. Look at this global currency performance this year, and guess what is top of the heap? It's the Mozambique Metical. And if you ever get a chance to visit Maputo, I strongly advise you to do so. They have the most flavoursome tiger prawns, and it's a beautiful place to visit. The Portuguese influence is really very enjoyable. Home thoughts. I think we dream so we don't have to be apart for so long. If we're in each other's dreams, we can be together all the time. Finch Hatton's tweeted one green hill, Chilu Hills, the Savo. And we, of course, visited the Chilu Hills with Finch Hattons. And take a look at this video, which shows you the volcanic rolling hills, Chilu Hills, and much more, all in the Savo. This photograph of elephant footstools by Britta Jasinski of Nat Geo Photos caught my attention. Very sad, isn't it? And then this as well, a taxidermied zebra head confiscated by US fish and wildlife officers. That took me back to some zebras I saw near the Athi Dam in the Nairobi National Park. And another zebra that crossed in front of us at the Amboseli. You are valuable and irreplaceable. If you are ever told otherwise, do not believe it. In reading one of Naipaul's books, which I read a very long time ago, called Magic Seeds, and in it he says it is wrong to have an ideal view of the world. That's where the mischief starts. That's where everything starts unraveling. Big news in the States, New York Times, Paul Manafort, who once ran Trump's campaign, has been told to surrender, which he did. Bail was set at $10 million. But interestingly, it's not only him who's caught on the crosshairs. A fellow called Papadopoulos, who seems to have been speaking like a canary to Robert Mueller's team. He's also caught up in it. What this goes back to is something I wrote in August when I said that the special prosecutor Robert Mueller III's hot breath could be felt on President Trump's collar. And I was saying that any financial expert will tell you that President Trump's financial affairs are a smoking gun. Deutsche Bank loans were surely mirror transactions where Deutsche Bank was a commission agent interposed between Trump and the real lender. All those sales where Trump proclaimed himself a genius because they were so off-market, we would all be incredulous, were essentially just that, incredible. And I said there is a prima facie case here, and it's in plain sight. President Trump knows it, and that's why he's been demanding Al Pacino-like demands of loyalty from the likes of the now dispensed with FBI Director James Comey. And I was also speaking about Russian interference in that piece I wrote, We Have a DV-8 Tomahawk. And I said the first thing, if you are the one who's deviating, is plausible deniability. And the second thing is non-linearity. An example of that is a tweet coming out from WikiLeaks saying that they rejected a meeting with Cambridge Analytica on this very matter. And I've concluded by saying Putin has proven himself an information master, and his adversaries are his information victims. The Stalwart tweeted, "Who has control of the Twitter account is the new taking control of the radios and TV stations. Stay out of the South China Sea talks," Beijing tells the US. The US shouldn't obstruct efforts by China and its neighbors to agree on a code of conduct in the disputed South China Sea, China's ambassador said Monday as President Trump prepared for his first official visit to Asia. Ambassador Kui Tiankai said the U.S. has no territorial claim in those waters and should let countries in the region manage their disputes in a friendly and effective way. Beijing's island building in the South China Sea has drawn criticism from Washington, which says it has a national interest in freedom of navigation in sea lanes critical for world trade. Secretary of State Tillerson this month said China's provocative actions challenge international law and norms. End of August, I said, apart from a few half-hearted and timid FONOPs, China has established control over the South China Sea. It has created artificial islands and then militarized those artificial islands across the South China Sea. It is a mind-boggling geopolitical advance any which way you care to cut it. Here we see Donald and Melania Trump welcoming ghosts, goblins, and everything in between to the White House. Pankaj Mishra, America's wars are spreading chaos in Africa, as an article in Bloomberg View starts off with the story of Indonesia, how the military killed as many as 1 million suspected communists in the mid-1960s. Saying newly classified documents from the US Embassy in Jakarta reveal an extraordinary degree of American complicity. It's astonishing, for instance, it took the death of 4 American soldiers in an ambush in Niger early last month to alert many, including Senator Lindsey Graham, to the presence of nearly 1,000 US troops in the country. Another interventionist, Senator John McCain, is now pressing the Pentagon for more details about a mission that costs American lives and about which even he knew nothing. In another fine mess, America, Uganda and the War on Terror, a stunning new book of reportage and analysis, Helen Epstein reveals Museveni, like Suharto before him, as one of the biggest beneficiaries of an ill-conceived and sparsely monitored war on America's enemies abroad. Epstein, a professor of human rights and global public health at Bard College, lays out in appalling detail how Museveni, who seized power in 1986, has helped worsen every major conflict in Eastern and Central Africa since then. The neighbor from hell shares blame for not only the wars in the Congo that have destroyed millions of lives, or the rise of the warlord Joseph Kony, Al-Shabaab, which killed more than 300 people in Mogadishu last month. He also bears considerable responsibility for the rebel invasion of Rwanda in 1990 that triggered the genocide there in 1994. But basically saying means have indeed overwhelmed the end in Africa, empowering figures like Museveni. Our continuing political and public indifference to their misdeeds suggests that Black Lives Matter even less in Africa than they do in the US, says Pankaj Mishra. Discussed disrupting illicit financial activity with His Excellency Sheikh Abdullah bin Nasser Al Thani, the Prime Minister of Qatar, that's Steve Mnuchin. Spanish stocks shrug off Catalonia crisis. The IBEX surged 2.5%, its highest since mid-August yesterday. Amazon might help explain the inflation mystery. Increasingly, economists are talking about the Amazon effect. The idea is that as online retailers gain market share, they're putting pressure on brick-and-mortar shops to keep prices down. This, in turn, might be preventing inflation from getting up to normal. I think that's a fact. Bitcoin is at fresh highs. That's Holger. Bitcoin continues its surge past $6,000. Its total value has crossed $100 billion. Virtual coin makes up more than 50% of overall cryptocurrency market. Let's move on to the currency markets, where the dollar sold off on all this news coming out of Washington. We'll start with the euro 116.31, dollar index 94.58, Japanese yen 113.10, Swiss franc 0.9958, the pound, where everyone's expecting a rate hike as early as this week, was at 132.10. The Australian dollar is at 0.7675. India rupee 64.785. South Korean won 11.2071. The Rial 3.2888. Egyptian pound 17.6505. And the South African rand is at 14.0515. Dollar index, let me put up a 3-month chart. The level that's really key is 93.50. As I've said before, we've rallied beyond that level, but we've got to keep an eye on any sort of geopolitical stroke Mueller risk in the US. Euro dollar 116.31. I think we can trade a little bit higher short term. Breakout to new all-time highs for Apple on 2 big up days. Market cap now $866 billion. Commodity markets, gold last trading 1275.75. We've come off a little bit here now. Brent crude, which has been on an absolute tear, last trading $60.46. Got close, or if not above, $61 on Brent yesterday. Put up a chart from T Commodity as well. On the LME, overall inventories are being drawn down. Stocks of metal in the exchange's warehousing system have dropped to the lowest since 2008. It's an interesting development. Truffle prices doubled to $3,200 a pound. Each fall, truffle aficionados around the globe pay dearly to have the lumpen tubers shaved atop risottos, scattered on pasta, and draped onto sushi. But white truffles are finicky, resistant to farming, and highly perishable. They grow wild in forests, are hand-hunted by men with trained dogs or pigs, and are available fresh only from September into December. In 2016, there was an abundance of truffles and prices plunged, but a hot summer followed by a dry fall this year made for a dramatically smaller harvest this season. Look at this veal agnolotti in brown butter with shaved white truffle. Featured dish during A. Fiore's White Truffle Weekend in New York. And in this photograph, breathing in the musk at the shop of a truffle merchant in Italy. S&P has upgraded Argentina's rating by 1 notch from B to B+, just on the day President Macri laid out his plans for reform for the second half of his term. Sub-Saharan Africa, we don't care about what they say and how pretty they say it, Nikki Haley said of her talks with African leaders. The IMF have put out their Sub-Saharan African Regional Economic Outlook, and they're saying the broad-based slowdown in Sub-Saharan Africa is easing, but the underlying situation remains difficult. Growth is expected to reach 2.6% in 2017, but the pickup mainly one-off factors, notably a recovery in oil production in Nigeria, easing of drought conditions in eastern and southern Africa, and a somewhat improved external environment. Even with this uptick, growth will barely surpass the rate of population growth, while a third of the countries in the region continue to grow at 5% or more. In 12 countries comprising over 40% of the region's population, income per capita is expected to decline. Growth in the region is expected to pick up further in 2018 and reach 3.4%, but ongoing policy uncertainty in Nigeria and South Africa hinders a stronger rebound, and growth is not expected to increase further in 2019. Many of the fast-growing economies continue to be driven by public spending, with debt levels and debt service costs rising. This is a big challenge. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, there was a lot of street protests, and apparently 4 civilians and a policeman died in the city of Goma. South African all shares up 16.24% this year at a record high. Dollar versus rand 14.05, 14.40 is the next target. Egyptian pound 17.6505. Nigerian all share up 35.76% so far this year. Ghana Stock Exchange up 39.68% so far this year. Lovely article in the New York Times, up close with the tribes of Ethiopia's imperiled Omo Valley. Your George W. Bush came here 2 years ago, and not a person recognized him. No one knew who he was. Would they have known Nelson Mandela? No. No one here would have seen TV. No one here thinks beyond Omo. I've come to the Omo Valley with the innovative tourism entrepreneur Will Jones to get a view into the lives of some of Africa's most traditional tribes. I'm particularly interested in the Omo, Mr. Jones told me. It's an at-risk ecosystem with at-risk communities. But it's still a very wild place. Mr. Jones was born in Nigeria of English parents, raised in East Africa, and educated in England. When it came time to put on a suit and go into town, he said, I came back to Africa. Uhuru Kenyatta won the repeat election with 7.4 million votes. I wrote a piece over the weekend talking about finding the path back to political equilibrium. I said I, for one, believe that the president won the first iteration of the election, and the Supreme Court, while striking a blow for transparency and constitutionality, failed entirely to weigh the consequences of their decision and to provide a roadmap. However, what is clear is that we have now been overtaken by events, and the current political situation is one of disequilibrium. And I was talking about how to find the path back to political equilibrium, because saying that central is the central question and is a sine qua non for the economy, which has slowed dramatically, and where we need to absolutely avoid cliff edge effects. KEPSA estimated the loss to the economy of $7 billion, about 10% of GDP. NSC had fallen, but now starting to recover. I came across this comment from Eric Chitai, a security guard in Kisumu. In a magnific Reuters report, people from this region are feeling isolated from the rest of the country, who are feeling disconnected. And I was saying that Kenyatta is a mercurial and popular politician, and I think he's going to put some of that political capital to work. He's going to be the president of more than 40 million citizens. The political reality, and in fact his legacy, is now going to be calibrated on how he reconnects people like Eric Chitai. I said everyone is a shareholder in this Kenya Inc. enterprise, or as Marshall McLuhan once said, there are no passengers on spaceship Earth, we are all crew. This is a political imperative, the reconnection of 40 million Kenyans to spaceship Kenya, without which we're going to continue sputtering. Cambridge Analytica's summary on data-driven behavioral change. This is via the Reinhardt. Safaricom CEO Bob Collymore takes medical leave for a number of months. We wish him a speedy recovery. ShopRite prepares Kenya entry to fill gaps left by Nakumatt. We are currently in talks with some of the property owners, but nothing has been signed. They seem to have applied for administration as of yesterday. Equity Bank posted a 3% drop in net profit. It's looking to transaction income and regional subsidiaries to grow its earnings as the cap on cost of loans and the charged political environment cut its interest income and shaved its profit for the 9 months to September. The engines of the private sector are closing off, said James Mwangi. The wind has been taken out of the sail by these temporary headwinds. This is not lazy banking because the return on government securities is higher. We're not able to lend to the micro borrowers whose default rate is as high as 80%, he said. Subsidiaries in Uganda, Rwanda, South Sudan, Tanzania, and DR Congo collectively increased their profit by 53% year on year. I thought it was a very robust performance in the current environment. Take a look at the link for its share price data, trading PE of 8.33. EPS declined by 2.8%, profit before tax declined by 3.6% 9 months through September. Kenya's best bars, from beachfront hangouts to hip hotels. The one I've got up here is of the Tamarind Mombasa, where we often used to visit when we were young. Nairobi all share up 20.08% year to date. It's got a bit more to go now. NAC 20 up 15.34% year to date. Once again, thank you kindly for taking the time and stopping by.